Hi everyone, today I'm here with my June wrap up. So in the month of June I managed to read 4 books and I did have 1 DNF, but I also did start some different books which I might mention at the end. So let's get started. For the month of June I did use my Wheel of TBR game that I've stolen from Cody, but I'm not reviewing that because I've done it for 2 months, so I will do that at the end of July. But I've completed 3 books out of 6, so I'm doing pretty well, I think, with that. So the first book I finished in June was The Yard by Alex Gratian, and this is the first book in a series. This is a series based in like 1800s, late 1800s, and in this book we follow a murder squad, or the murder squad for the Scotland Yard, and they are obviously focusing on murders. It is set 1 year on from Jack the Ripper, so there is that. I really enjoyed this book. I give it 4 stars. It follows different characters. We've got Walter Day, who is Walter Day, he's like a new, I can't remember whether he's like a DI or a DC, I can't remember who he is, to be honest with you. But we also have a forensic pathologist, Dr. Kingsley, who is apparently the world's first. So he technically doesn't really work with the police, he works sort of separately from them, but he sort of works for them, if that makes any sense. So and he helps with the murders to identify either who killed them or the weapon and all of that. You get the drift. But yes, I really enjoyed it. I thought the plot was really interesting, and because we were following different characters it gave different perspectives, and I think like there's a lot going on in this book. There are different storylines, that's why there's not like a main plot thing that's going on. There's following a few different murders. There's also one main one that's sort of ongoing thing. I just found it really interesting. I don't think there was a single boring page. It was from the very first page of first chapter. I was hooked. I wanted to read it. I was really enjoying it, and I just found it really interesting, and I really did like a couple of characters. So I definitely do see myself reading the rest of the series. Good job, because I already have the next 2 in a series, and if I like those I will definitely have to buy the remaining 2. I think there's only 5 in a series, but I'm not 100% sure. But I definitely really enjoyed it. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars, first of all, is the setting. So it's supposedly set in late 1800s. It just does not feel like that. The dialogue and everything else just feels like it's modern time, with a little bit old-fashioned phrases every now and then, but very rarely. And the description of places, like everything about it just does not feel like it's set back in the past. So I think that really quite failed that time period, so that's definitely a downside. But it didn't really reflect on my enjoyment of the story too much. I didn't mind it too much this time, just because I was enjoying the plot so much more and I was enjoying the characters. Like, don't get me wrong, there are obviously descriptions and things that would only happen back in the day, so there's no like modern technology or anything like that, and they're only just discovering fingerprints, not even as a concrete evidence or anything like that. So that was quite interesting, but it just does not feel like it's set back in the past, but it is still amazing. But yeah, the other reason I didn't give 5 stars is just didn't quite get there for some reason. I don't know if the next books will get there, but I had a really good time with it and definitely really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to reading book number 2 next at some point. The next book was Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. I finally read this book. I've had it for probably about 2 years or so, and I've been meaning to get to it, but I never did. I gave it 3 stars. I think, again, what's happened in this case, this is a popular book that everyone says they love it, and of course I'm going to be in the minority. I'm always the one with popular books. I just don't love them. I just don't love them. But anyway, this is like a YA fantasy book. We follow the main character, Kellen, yeah, Kellen, there's basically like a trial sort of thing for their magic powers to prove that they can move on to the next step, or that they're proper like mages or something like that. I'm already forgetting it, I'm sorry. But he basically doesn't have any magic. And there he meets Farius Parfax, who is one of the mysterious Argosy, and she basically has like different tricks and different cards, and she might be his only hope. Like I said, give it 3 stars. I just didn't see the appeal too much, to be honest, and I'm definitely not going to carry on with the series. Unfortunately, it just felt a little bit generic. I feel like I'm starting to think fantasy is definitely not my favourite genre, and for me to enjoy fantasy, it's got to be something slightly different, or something like, I don't like trials much in books, I think, although I did enjoy Nevermore, but that's a little bit different. Do you see what I mean? It's just I feel like it needs to be something more to it. It either needs to be super magical, it either needs to be super atmospheric, or I really need to like the characters or the writing style, or yeah. But this just felt a bit generic, and nothing really was gripping me. I was even thinking of DNFing it at one point, not gonna lie, but I wanted to wait until this specific creature appeared, and it did sort of save the day. But I still gave it 3 stars because it sort of made it better for a time being, and then it put me back into thinking, I'm not really enjoying it too much. But 3 stars is not really a bad rating. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going to carry on. What I did like about this book though is the writing style and the humour in this book, so I did like that. It's just unfortunately the plot and the characters is just not for me. It's not gripping enough for me. I wouldn't say it's necessarily atmospheric, and I'm just not interested in where the story is going and how he's going to go about it, what happens at the end, and I just quite frankly don't care enough to continue with the series, unfortunately. So it's just a little bit of a disappointment, but I read it. My next one was a complete mood read. When I was starting to feel a little bit slumpy, I thought I'd just go to my bookshelf and pick up something that screams at me, something that I'm interested in, something that's going to be quick and something I'm in the mood for. So I've picked up Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, which is a middle grade horror type thing. And she is the author of the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy, which I've only read the first book from a couple of years ago, which I'm planning to reread it to carry on with the series. But this was really good. I give it 4 stars. I'll read you the blurb of this book because even that sounds so magical. At night they will come for the rest of you. It's with this ominous warning that 11-year-old Ollie and her 2 friends, Coco and Brian, set out on a chilling adventure in the woods, with nightfall fast descending and the ever-watchful eyes of scarecrows on their backs. What had begun as a remarkable school trip to a nearby farm soon becomes a frightening journey into the world behind the mist. In order to survive and not remain trapped there forever, Ollie and her friends need to be quick on their feet as they work to unravel a 100-year-old mystery, save their classmates, and beat the villainous smiling man at his own game. Small Spaces is a deliciously creepy and hair-raising tale that readers won't soon forget. And like I said, it is the first book in the quartet. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It didn't quite hit the 5-star spot, but it was creepy in places. I feel like if I was reading it at night by myself, I'd definitely be freaked out quite a lot. But because I was reading it throughout the day with the light on, obviously, it didn't quite hit me too much, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was really creepy, really atmospheric, really easy to read. The writing style is actually really quite nice. I can't remember if it's exactly beautiful, if I would call that beautiful, but it's definitely easy to read, definitely easy to follow. And like I said, the atmosphere and the plot are the strongest points of this book. I'm definitely looking forward to reading book number 2 in the series, and then probably buy the rest of the series because I've got book number 2 on my shelves already. So I'd like to read that hopefully sooner rather than later. And it was so easy and quick to read. I just had a really good time with it. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I like the creepy middle grades, and I think Catherine Arden is an amazing creepy middle grade writer. So yeah, my next book was unfortunately a DNF, and it was something I was really looking forward to, something I was in the mood for. But that is Places in the Darkness by Chris Brookmere. I was, like I said, really looking forward to it. It's a sci-fi book set in space, but it didn't feel like it was set in space. So anyway, I was actually misled by my own thoughts of what this book was going to be about. So it is set on a space ship somewhere above Earth, and they're basically there to colonize different planets in the future. So they're discovering new ways and blah blah blah. I'm not 100% sure. So I thought what was going to happen is that when they found a mutilated body, for some reason I thought it was going to be related to some disease that is spreading throughout the ship, but it's not. It was a murder. So it's like a murder mystery thing set in space on a spaceship, which sounds interesting, right? But it wasn't. I DNF'd it. I can't remember. I think it was about 50 or 70 pages maybe when I DNF'd it, and then I looked up different reviews that definitely made me think I'm not going to enjoy this book, so I'm not going to be wasting my time with it. So we follow two main characters. One is a bit of a, not exactly a criminal, but she's sort of doing some things that are technically illegal, I think, and because this spaceship is considered to be a city that is without crime, and obviously there's been a mutilated body that somebody discovered. I don't think she had anything to do with that, but still. And we follow a different sort of character as well, who is the complete opposite. So she is going to be supervising some process or whatever, but she's so strict to the rules. She's so, like, she felt so dry and so almost boring, and so like there's no personality to her whatsoever, whilst the other one also annoyed me because of her attitude towards everything, and it was too sweary. Like, I always used to say I don't like swearing in books, but then I got used to it because in a lot of thrillers and mysteries and all of that there is swearing, but for this one it just felt a bit unnecessary. It was like almost too much, and it was already feeling like a really quite aggressive point of view. With swearing it added too much more, and I was just like not enjoying that because I don't need to read that kind of thing. I don't like it. It puts me off a little bit. Whilst yeah, the other one is too strict, and she almost felt like she wasn't even human in, well, she is obviously, but in a way that there's nothing to her personality whatsoever. And I was reading reviews who said, basically, without spoilers obviously, that it's rather boring, and they were underwhelmed with the discovery of who was responsible for killing the people on the ship and how it all went about. It was apparently also a little bit too political, like within the ship with all the different organizations and whatever. I'm just not there for that. But what I found within the first 50 or 70 pages that I read is the fact that it was so boring. The descriptions of everything, it was boring. Space stuff rarely was described. So it felt like it wasn't even set in space. It felt like it could be on any other city on Earth, and I wouldn't have noticed the difference at all. So, and apparently that doesn't really change throughout the book too much at all. So it still feels like it could be set in New York or somewhere. Which I did get the impression from the first 50 or 70 pages. And it's just not what I went into this book for. So when you go into a sci-fi, a spacey sci-fi that is thinking of saving the planet, and yes, if there is a murder mystery going on, it sounds incredible, but how it was done, it was so dull and boring. There was a lot of information dumped at you for you to realise the structure of how this is all going, and the politics and the characters and what they're doing. It was just incredibly boring and dry. I did not like it. I could not even force myself to read it. So unfortunately that was a DNF, and it is my first sci-fi that I tried this year, and it is a DNF. So I'll have to try more spacey sci-fi and hopefully have more luck with those. My next book was a Kindle book. So I was speaking to one of my colleagues at work the other day, and I was saying how I'm in a reading slump, and she recommended me some books which I've bought, and one of them is the one I read, and that is Blood Sugar by Sasha Rothschild, I think how I pronounce her name. And it was a good book. I gave it 4 stars. So in this one we follow the main character, whose name I already forgot because I don't remember ever anyone's names. But anyway, she is in a room with a detective who is blaming her for the death of somebody she didn't kill. So she's being blamed for the death of her husband. She didn't kill him, but she killed 3 other people on the list. It's not a spoiler, it's in the blurb. And so basically, of course, she's trying to prove that she didn't kill her husband, and of course she doesn't want them to know that she killed the other 3 people. But the detective is blaming her for all 4 deaths. And it was really interesting. I didn't love it. It didn't quite grip me as much as I would have wanted it to. But it was really interesting, and it was interesting to be in the head of somebody who's obviously killed people and how she went about it. Because like she's explaining, she's not a psychopath. She's quite good at psychology. She studied psychology, so she studied herself as well. So she doesn't think she's a psychopath or anything like that. So it was really interesting to be in her head and see her thought process of how she goes about killing some people, what her motives are, how she lives with it. I don't want to say too much, but it was an interesting and refreshing perspective. Obviously, it's a bad thing to kill people, but let's just remember we're talking about a fiction book. It's not a real life thing. So let's just point that out there. But yeah, the book was really interesting. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I don't think I have too many thoughts on it. It was just interesting. She was basically describing, it was like flicking between timelines. So in one timeline, she's there with a detective he's asking her questions and she's answering questions. And then we do go back to the past of all of those killings and other events in her life. It was just interesting. I did enjoy it quite a lot, and it was a refreshing perspective, like I said. And it was really easy to read. I would say I think I like the main character, however bad it might sound. But again, let's just point it out, it is a fiction book. It's not a real life thing. So in real life thing, I wouldn't be rooting for the murderer. So there is that. But yes, so these are all of the books that I finished in the month of June. But like I said, I did start a few more, which I'm going to briefly mention to you now. I won't go into too much detail at all. I'll just show you the books that I'm currently reading. So one of them is The Complete History of Jack the Ripper, which I don't think I've even shown you before, but it's one of my new ones, and you'll see it in my future book haul whenever that comes up, because I'm trying to be good and not buy books. But I'm not far in at all at the minute. I'm 80 pages in because it's a non-fiction book. It's taking me a longer time to read it, but it's really interesting. It's full of facts, full of everything. I'm just really enjoying it. Another one, we're still in the process of rereading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. We're not quite that far in. We're only on page, well, 259, but because it's a big book, it just does not look like we've made progress. But I'm reading it with my friend. Together we're buddy reading it. We also started another buddy read, which is All the Rage by Kara Hunter. We're not far in at all. I was just so in the mood for this book. I kept thinking about this book. This is the 4th book in a series, by the way, and I'm just loving every bit of it. I just love Kara Hunter's books, at least this series. I don't know if she's written anything else, but I'm just enjoying it so much. And again, I'm reading it with the same friend and having a great time with it. I also did start the other day Born to Run by Michael Morpurgo, which was on my TBR, for Wheel of TBR, but I literally read 12 pages and then stopped in the middle of a chapter. I think at one point I just wanted a nice quick read in the evening to just start, because I was really missing the process of reading. So I started this one and haven't got far at all after this. So I might just have to start it from the beginning whenever I get back to it. But we'll see. Anyway, so these are all of the books. Oh, and I'm also listening to an audiobook of On What Grounds, which is like a cozy mystery novel. I thought I just heard thunder. That'd be great if this was a thunderstorm coming. I love thunderstorms. Anyway, so yeah, these are all of the books I read in the month of June. Like I said, I was being a little bit slumpy, but I think I'm out of it now, so let's hope I can read a lot more books in the month of July. So yeah, please let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, or any thoughts of them if you want to read the books I've mentioned, and what you've read in the month of June and what was your favourite book. Please chat to me in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye!